Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew and today we are reviewing the HIYA Toys Exquisite Basic Godzilla Heat Ray version from Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, I need to make everyone aware that this is the first time I have ever had a HIYA Toys figure. I'm not too familiar with the history of their company and their previous works, which I know consists of mainly like Alien Predator figures, similar to that of NECA, and you're going to be hearing me say that a lot. But to summarize, NECA has always been my go-to company. Since I was pretty much starting out with Godzilla figures, they were my go-to. Sadly, in 2020, they had to discontinue their line because Playmates wanted the master license for themselves, and all other companies were temporarily stripped of the license. And if they wanted to come back, they chose to come back. NECA did not, unfortunately. But along came HIYA to fill that empty void with articulated, highly affordable Godzilla figures for the market. So, does HIYA Toys deliver on this figure, or is it just another dud in what is NECA's grave? Let's find out. You've heard it once and you've heard it twice. The sculpt and paint is absolutely beautiful. I can say, within the 8 years I've been collecting, this figure might single-handedly have the best sculpt I have ever seen on a MonsterVerse figure. And that's saying something because everyone knows how much I love the NECA molds. I'm not saying like those are terrible. No, they absolutely were killer. This is absolutely, with no pun intended, legendary. The spray on the eyes and the mouth, it looks so gradient. It almost looks like there's something glowing. When we take a look at the inside of the mouth, you can tell that the amount of care and detail towards the sculpt and paint is absolutely superb. The teeth are individually sculpted and kind of painted individually, but the tongue as well is especially done really well, and especially like the detail inside the mouth and the membrane. There's so much going on here. The neck, however, despite the fact that it is really well sculpted and undeniably really well detailed, the paint is a bit on the iffy side for me. Not only is it in the technicality incorrect spot, because the neck shouldn't be glowing. It should actually be the gills that are glowing, because, you know, that is a gateway to Godzilla's atomic breath, which is coming out of his mouth. The application itself kind of looks less like paint and more like nail polish. And to prove it, I custom painted this finger puppet back in 2019, and I used a very similar color blue to this one. You see how that looks? The chest, however, this place looks awesome. Like, look at how well this is washed with the chest. However, I will again say that the paint transition between the shoulders to the chest, it's so sudden. It's from blue to gray. So it almost looks like he's wearing a vest of some sort, as if he's a police officer. The claws themselves, though, look fantastic, and honestly, for the detail that was put into such a tiny little area of the body, they sure knocked it out of the park with this one. And even though it doesn't pick it well up on camera, the dry brushing on the legs is absolutely apparent IRL, depending on the lighting, and when you can see it, you can really see it. It is amazing. It almost looked like something straight out of the movie. It is straight out of the movie, honestly. Every little crack and crevice is one-to-one with what we saw in the film. And these big, mean claws look absolutely awesome. However, I will say, it reminds me a lot of the promo Godzilla foot-crushing little objects for King of the Monsters. And now we come to everyone's favorite section, the spines. And wow, look at how majestic these things are. Not only are these probably the best looking spines I've seen in a long time on a figure, they're probably the most movie accurate. Playmates did a fully translucent do-over, SH Monster Arts did a nice dry brushing and wash, and NECA did a really nice stylization. But this is 100% movie accurate. And coming down all the way to the tail, it's so dry brushed in there. Like, it is done so expertly, if that's even a word, and it's done so well. I seriously cannot get over the fact that HIYA Toys did it in such a really nice way. So to summarize the Sculpt Paint, it seems that HIYA Toys was prioritizing more movie accuracy over stylization, and in my opinion, they really knocked it out of the park. I have never seen a Godzilla figure this movie accurate before since the NECA 54, and that's saying something. For articulation, we actually have quite a bit. So first of all, we have a hinge at the jaw, but here's the coolest part. We have a hinge at the tongue. This is something that caught me by surprise, because initially I didn't know that. So we can actually go up about that far, and it's a bit tricky to get out, so you have to actually pry your nail into it there. There we go, down about that far, down to the bottom of the mouth. And do keep in mind when you close the jaw, it actually does shift the tongue up. Next, we're going to talk about the head. So, on first glance, you might notice the multiple segments and think that there's tons of ball joints. Not true. It's actually just a barbell style ball joint that is essentially this big long rod that sticks to the head all the way to the neck. And how I found this out was actually kind of funny. See, I thought it was like the original figure where there was like a hinge joint in between there. Turns out I was wrong. But may I just say, for the ball joint that's here and the ball joint that's here, I have never seen ingenuity like this. They tried something similar to the Monster Arts and it kind of flipped. This one, because they're overlapping, it looks so organic. Now what I mean by this is, look at the gills. You see how they clump together when Godzilla turns his head like this? That's natural. When Godzilla extends his neck like this to the other side, they go with it. That's natural. The same thing happens on the opposite side, of course, but it works so fluidly. And that's honestly what I love most about this figure, is that they found a way to make it look organic, like a real creature. And honestly, the fact that there's not much gaps really saves this figure a ton. However, there is a fault. See, because they're segmented, the way it's cut down here, it kind of latches on. If you were to slide this forward and then try bring it back up, this part of the head kind of gets caught in the gap. So I suggest just kind of leaving that alone. And if you must absolutely look down, do it at your own risk. The shoulders have a ball joint here, of course, so you can go forward and back, up and down, pretty much the standard. And you also have a singular hinged elbow. Then kind of rotate in and out, forward and back, and has a ball joint here at the wrist, along with a ball jointed ab crunch, which is still relatively tight on mine, but as you can tell, there is a gap there, so it must be one big joint in there. Next, we're going to go over the hips, which both of them can go out like that far, in about that far, can rotate, I'm assuming 360, but I don't want to like push it, because I just got this thing. So we have hinged knees, which, yeah, they are double hinged, or that's a single hinge with just a sleeve. I am actually not too sure. And we have ball jointed feet, which mine are very tight. And for the tail, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 joints running from the tip to the base. And all these joints work really well together. However, I will say that they are kind of noisy. So if that's something that puts you off, maybe don't move the tail. But it is really good to have this sort of range of movement. So the sculpt and paint and articulation, I would say, articulation at least, this is awesome. It is essentially just a big NECA figure, but for what the articulation is, I'm really surprised, especially like the head movement, of just how good this figure is overall. Next, let's talk about accessories, which I'm so sorry to people who want to buy this figure. You got cheated and lied to. There's no accessory with this one. Just kidding, there is. We get, of course, a alternate head part, everyone's favorite, which obviously the head part, actually we're going to just show you all the accessories. We have an alternate neck piece, and you know what it is. the heat ray, which this is a pretty big heat ray. I was not ready for how big this thing was. Like, it's about as tall as the figure itself, which the figure itself is like 7-8 inches tall. So you might think, okay, I just open up the mouth, peg it in, and we're all set to go, right? No, it's not that easy. See, that is a square peg. Now, what you want to do is it's basically designed to recreate how he looks up and shoots the beam in King of the Monsters and versus Kong when he's under the aircraft carrier and shoots it from underneath. So what you want to do is you want to pop off the head. Yeah. Don't lose this. Oh, snap. Do not lose these. Next, you want to just take off the 3 sleeves, and this is how I knew that. It was a bit of a QC issue, but at first I thought it was like one piece that was just fused together. Turns out that there are 3 separate pieces, and they were just held together by tape. So that's just on their fault. But as you can see, we have a very large stick. And for you NECA viewers, does this remind you of something? Yeah, essentially it's just a sleeve for the neck. So to put this on, you want to make sure that the spines are pointing backward, otherwise it'll look odd. So put this on, and you'll see the ball joint slightly bulging out. Take this head that has it permanently open, and it doesn't have a sculpted in tongue, and has a lot of the teeth blotched out. Put this head on, and if it's not working for you, use a blow dryer or heat it up. I'd recommend the blow dryer. And then once it's on, oh snap, mine has a hard time staying on. It's not supposed to like connect. It just has a hard time actually staying on. But once it's on, and has a bit of trouble actually just staying on. So once you have the head on, you want to make sure that your Godzilla is rearing up as much as possible. And you're going to want to peg in the beam like this. It's sculpted right there. And make sure it is pointing this way, right into Godzilla's mouth. So just simply slide it in. And there you go. You have your Godzilla shooting up into the sky with that long beam. Look at that. It goes on for miles. To just put in perspective of how big of a beam this is, it's almost as long as the NECA Shin Godzilla's back tail beam. And honestly, it looks like it's like a complete slobber knocker, but they're actually really close together. In fact, my finger, as far as like the length goes of it, like the width, that's about the difference between the two. Now, a common complaint with the SH Monster Arts figure was that the atomic breath that comes with it actually tends to bend over time. In fact, that kind of happens instantaneously because the beam itself wasn't designed to do that. This beam is a completely new beam and has a clear rod that actually, you can kind of see it right here, this kind of like reflective piece. It actually goes all the way through. It looks like it almost like stops there, but it actually kind of goes through all the way through the beam to actually give it some structural support. So I believe that you can really hold this thing can hold its pose for a long time. Also, since I know people would be asking, to a degree, the heads are interchangeable like this. So if you want to have them roaring up into the air, honestly, I would just suggest just removing the beam and just having this thing displayed from afar. But if you want the tongue out specifically, it can be done, but it's a much looser fit thanks to the fact that it's like completely static. Also, I would not recommend putting this head on these neck segments and putting it on there. The reason why is because this neck is static and meant to hold the weight of the beam. If you put the beam on this head and then have the joints just like this, it'll actually look down and shoot it like straight ahead. And it honestly looks kind of goofy because the beam technically is supposed to be going straight, but it's actually going like this. See what I'm talking about? It's supposed to go straight, but it's a bit too upward on Godzilla's mouth. But anyways, I think I've been rambling enough for the accessories. Let's move on to the next segment. So for some size comparisons, here he is next to the NECA Godzilla 2014, and of course, the Bandai Movie Monster series Shin Godzilla from 2016. And as you can tell, like, to a degree, these three figures are really not bad in terms of scale goes. Like, he is supposed to be shorter than both of these two because he's the 2014 Godzilla. But he is supposed to be a bit shorter than him. But as far as length goes, he is supposed to be like the dominant one of the bunch. And then I say that and I find out that this one is actually the longer one. And this guy's the least lengthiest, but he still has a good length. But with that being said, I would say if you want like a good trio of Godzilla figures from movie scale, shoulder to shoulder, these three are not a bad way to go. And for some more size comparisons, here he is next to some other Godzilla figures in the 6-inch, 7-inch scale with, of course, the NES Godzilla, or Game Godzilla on the channel, the 1964 Godzilla from NECA, both are them from NECA, and the Playmates Godzilla 2004 6-inch version, which, now that I'm looking at it, I think I was kind of lied to about the scale, because this guy is just the same height as this one, and the 2003 is like the tallest one. Okay, so really looking at it, the NECA 2003 is a bit on the same side, so there you go, there's another size comparison. And for the last size comparison, and probably the size comparison you guys have been waiting for, here he is next to the NECA Godzilla 2019 V2, the SH Monsters Godzilla 2021, and the Playmates Godzilla 2021 with Heat Ray. And I will say this now, a 4-way battle is coming soon. I want to first do like direct one-on-ones with him, like him against NECA, him against Monsters, and embarrassingly enough, him against Playmates, because Playmates actually does have some advantages, and he will be surprising. But then, when we're all done that, we'll do a big matchup against all 4 of these guys up against each other in a 4-way free-for-all. It's like that one King Kong video I made with the 3 Playmates and the Mezco figure all up against each other. So if you want to see that, definitely hit subscribe. So, overall, what do I think of this figure? Is this the biggest, next, hottest thing? In my opinion, yeah. Is this going to be the next line I'm collecting? I don't know. Really all depends on a lot of factors that are outside of just opinion-based things, like financial things, you know, if I can even pay for some of those stuff, etc. Because I got this as a Christmas gift, and I'm going to have to wait and see if another one might be coming in, or at least I've been told, but whatever. That being said, I think that this figure on its own merit is amazing. And even compared to the other ones, like again, we're going to get to the comparisons another time, but this figure alone, honestly, is some of the best I have ever seen. It's a great first impression to HIYA Toys. And in my opinion, this figure absolutely knocks a lot of expectations out of the park. I'm going to be saying which ones I like more out of NECA, Monsters, Playmates, and HIYA once we actually do, like, the comparison videos. But as for right now, this figure is amazing and a must-have for anyone who liked the Godzilla vs. Kong movie and wants a good 6-inch or 7-inch scale, I guess now, figure. Because it comes with a great beam and comes with a lot of good posability, all for an, I wouldn't want to say cheap, but cheaper price compared to that of Monsters, which, hands, come on. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys liked it, definitely subscribe to the channel. Believe in Jesus, spread the gospel, accept him as your Lord and Savior today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. God bless everyone. Peace out.